Danielle, how's it going?
It's going well, thank you.
Yeah, now that we figured out the technical side of it. Yeah, sometimes we can be defeated by this technology. Yeah. But I want to get right into it. So, I want you to kind of tell people what it is that you do, and I'm going to stay away from some of the buzzwords like mental skills coach because we in our conversations in the past, you're like, I don't really like that word per se. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna let you kind of explain what it is that you do and your perspective on that.
So thank you for that. Mental skills, I just find after talking to so many people that it's very played out. And there's a lot of people who have not gotten out of it, maybe what their expectation was, like actually felt supported, helped, whatever. I kind of stay away from the word help because, we're athletes and we got to a certain point because we put in the work and we got there. There's a lot of times we don't realize that there's so many things we don't know. And so the word help, personally for me, that word never really sat well with me. I'm like, I don't need your help. But
Yeah.
support is what I offer. Yes, I work in the area of human performance in the form of mental performance. So yeah, having great conversations, seeking out the adjustments that maybe we just as athletes don't see that are right in front of us or with even within reach. Because of the current frame of perspective that we're standing in, we might not see it. And also we might not know it or know that it exists or ever had heard those things that way. So I believe that we all have, as athletes, we get to a certain level, we have everything we need. Sometimes we might need some help organizing it. Sometimes we might need someone to point out, hey, it's like when you can't find something, you're like, somebody get another eye over here, and someone walks right in and they pick up your keys and they're like, they're right here. It's very similar that I
Yeah.
find, working from the big league level on down to these high level prospects, big league in baseball, rugby, professional hockey, whatever it is, it's pretty amazing. I mean, we have everything we need. We just don't always see it for what it is. And I support and being able to see it and then go out, have a great conversation and go out and actually do it. So if it's not actionable, what I say to you, I personally feel like I failed you if you
Mhm.
can't really allow it to digest and get out there and be like, okay, cool, I can actually use this.
Right. Yeah. So one of the words that stood out to me whenever we were having these conversations in the past was an offensive mindset.
Yeah.
Whenever you told me about that offensive mindset, everything just kind of clicked in my head of like, I get what that feeling is. I get whenever I was defensive on the mound, where I was trying not to fail. I was throwing to not to fail. You know what I mean? And I can remember
Trying
the
not
times where I
to
was
walk in on ball three.
exactly. It's like, all right, don't. Or when a hitter, as a home run hitter goes in there, it's like, all right, well, don't throw it over the middle of the plate because he's gonna hit a homer or whatever. When I had the don't do this, that's that defensive mindset. I found that I wasn't performing optimally. Now, when I can relate back to whenever I felt offensively, where I was attacking the zone and I was executing pitches and I was really going, I had a different feel of it. My performance really showed something the same of something that I was going for, right? I was accomplishing a level of play that I knew that I can accomplish, but it was my mindset that allowed me to do that because I still had the same skills whether I was in defensive mode or offensive mode, but it's more about being able to focus in and allow your body to work. So it was one of those things where I was like, man, I wish I would have met you while I was playing because you would have been able to like help me just that one switch of like
Unlock.
just unlock like, all right, be more, you're are you defensive out there? And I could catch that word or those feelings that associate with being defensive a lot sooner, right? And that's what it's about when you're up in the big leagues, is like how to stop yourself from going towards those moments where you're kind of falling off the deep end with those, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I want you to explain the offensive and defensive mindset.
Okay. So you said so much in that, right? You said words, okay, first of all, the words matter. They matter more than we realize, and not just because of our feelings about a word. Hey,
Mm,
go be confident, go be aggressive, go throw a strike. I'm sure every pitcher's heard that a million times. Hey, we need you to throw strikes. So, you
yeah.
know, playing to results, feelings, feel, big difference. My feelings will more than likely, as an athlete, generate a defense. My feel is going to need, my best feel will be found, and kind of like you said, it triggered you. You're like, I felt that more than you
Mhm.
heard me talking about it, because we've talked about a lot of cool stuff.
Yep.
You're like, oh, I feel that. Right away when I said that, you're like, oh, yes. Because as an
Respect.
athlete, we know that feel, which is very different than our feeling. And we'll talk about that another time, AJ. But to answer your question, offense, defense, baseball calls, let's talk about, just since you brought it up and since this is what you did, your pitcher, baseball calls a pitcher on defense. They say that's his position. When I see a pitcher, I see a black belt martial artist. I see the technique. I see the leverage. That beats strength. So when a pitcher gets out there and he thinks he's on defense, in ball three, I'm trying not to do these things and I got to throw a strike and I control the runners and I got to get outs. All of a sudden, all this micromanagement of results start filling a space. How's this guy going to do his one job, which is to execute pitches? I mean, how will he do it? Ball three, I got to try not to walk this guy. These
Mm.
are all the human pieces of us that come flooding in. And outside the white lines, the environment of baseball, a lot of fear of failure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of failure in general that people don't understand how to have a relationship with in baseball, which is another conversation. So most of the defense in baseball lives outside the white lines. Offense wins baseball games,
Right.
offensive in the offensive position. But our pitcher that baseball's been calling defense, he's the most offensive guy on the field, needs to be. So if we can get a pitcher to understand this and to create his feel offensively before he walks out there, and then he starts executing each pitch one at a time offensively, leading with breath. That's another one. We'll talk about breath work. Balance. Let me give my breath offensively. Let me give my focus offensively. Let me execute. Let me locate offensively. AJ, offensively defined. I'm all in all the ways I can be. Always. Every pitch of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, people will describe that player, whoever it is, he's so aggressive. Let me remind everybody, the word aggressive is an adjective.
Right.
That's a describing word. That is not action. It's not a verb. Aggressive is not a verb. Offensive is the verb. So when we speak words of offense to the process and we leave the result out of it, because even you, I'm sure you've made a lot of beautiful pitches that were technically strikes, but the umpire didn't agree or he just missed the call.
Yep.
So how could a strike be your job when it has nothing to do with you, actually? The minute that ball goes downrange and leaves your hand, the most you can do is what you've leveraged and generated and executed by the time it leaves your hand. That's what you're responsible for. So if you are coming from a place, creating a place of offense, you're more than likely going to become very consistent and very, what they'll call, aggressive. However, baseball doesn't write checks for aggressive. It writes checks for
Right.
consistency. Offense wins baseball games. So yes, offense, defense, understanding those two, just that right there, could change your world and your game within that world.
And it did for me. It did for me. Like it just I felt it. And I think and it brings me to the next point of where we kind of skipped over about the feelings. So like when I'm in that zone of like, all right, the offensive mindset, when I'm throwing and let's say I throw a pitch that was technically a strike, but the umpire missed it, or I throw a perfect pitch and the guy just puts it in play or something like that.
Yeah,
When I'm in the offensive mindset, my feelings don't
are in
affect
check.
me as much.
They're in
They're in
check.
check, right?
They're
Because
still there though, right? The
they're still
feelings,
there.
you can still be pissed, sad, mad, worried, intimidated, scared, whatever the human emotion is there, they're in check. You're choosing to compete. And something so cool about a human being, we're the only creatures on the planet that can overthink our feelings and choose our thoughts. So for
Right.
you in those moments, you're tough. You're, without even realizing, you're like, no, I know the days where I was choosing and competing versus however I felt
Hmm.
feelings about anything. The umpire, the coaches, the this, the that, the that. You were just going at them. You
Right.
found that, but had you known how to organize and create it clean, organized, simple, never easy, imagine that, what you would have done. You did amazing things. Imagine what you would have done.
Yeah. So let's take it to where, let's say I'm a client of yours and we're having a conversation, and I had an outing where I allowed my feelings to come into play and allowed fears or whatever it was to,
What
like,
would that be called right there?
that would
What
be
would, what?
what defense when I was in the defensive mode,
Yes.
right? So like how do you get people from defensive mode to offensive mode, especially if they're prone to be a very defensive person? Like, I feel like there's some people that can use defense as a superpower because that's a powerful thing, right? So how do you, or they become more that's just the way that they've operated, so that's just how they think. So how do you navigate someone from the defensive mindset to an offensive mindset? What are the steps to that?
So breath work is one, because we have the power to shift actually manipulate our anatomical nervous system using breath. We take 20 to 30,000 breaths a day. We can use those breaths to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. I used to think,
Right.
what's the digest piece? However, I can digest my feelings, and I can take that energy and use it for me, so that defense doesn't get used against me. You
Mm.
have coaches be like, man, your emotions, or even as a hitter, when we see a pitcher, it's like, and it's the same for a pitcher that sees a hitter. When he's like 2 strikes and he's all, and he kind of already has given up. And they're like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm about to finish you. As athletes, we have that predator that goes like, we want to kill at that point. It's just,
Yeah.
that's that primal piece of being an athlete, that predator prey. Animals have it. Humans, we are animals. We have it. So I don't go in necessarily and go, don't beat this, don't be that.
Uh,
The player knows what they are. We drowned out the defense with the offense. I always say, I'll be like, hey, we got to drown it out. As a matter of fact, and if it keeps popping its head, I'll tell a player, we're going to waterboard it. We're going to waterboard that defense today with
mm,
the opportunities. Baseball, a bunch of opportunities to go out and execute. How you choose to shape the space you move through is on you. So if I bring up the awareness and they're like, well, where are all my offensive opportunities? Okay, here, 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 and here. Breath. I shift my nervous system over. Okay, I'm a little calmer. When I'm calmer, I'm more aware. Now my focus is actually not in the red zone where it's just like
mhm.
I'm pissed because some guys might get in an argument with their wife on the way to the game. That has caused injuries. Literally, I have players who are like, I was playing the argument in right field in my head, and the ball
Mm,
got hit into the gap, and I broke. And because he wasn't balanced and being offensive, not just on defense, just chilling on defense, being defensive mentally as well, his whole energy was on defense. He got
right.
injured, out for 3 months. So these small things are the big things. If we build our style of play, I don't care if you're a pitcher, catcher, right field, third baseman. My players, we create a mindset in my hitters. Pitchers, a lot of them don't hit. My hitters, I'm like, hey, take that same style out to third base. And remove the negotiation piece from the plate. What does that look like? That's detailed. However, it's just me plugging in the pieces of offense for their game. Whether it fits, everybody's different. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. And kind of the way it struck you, it's straight. It's
Mhm.
more, we're not just listening to listen and gather more information. We feel it. And so
Yeah.
I'll ask guys, does that land for you? I'm an athlete. I've won world championships. I've lost them. I've been a pro athlete in 2 different sports. I played collegiate sports. I've competed in other sports. We know when we know what's right, actually. And that's the beauty of being an athlete. It's the greatest honor because it does bring out that warrior in us, that primal piece of us,
Yes.
and it's technical. It's not always mechanical. Every hitter, oh, my mechanics, my pitchers, my mechanic. I go, time out. You cannot manage mechanics by the time a game comes, a scrimmage comes, none of it. We're just going to go take reps. Let's choose how we will do that. You can be defensive, or I can say, hey, AJ, I noticed you had a really tough week, tough outing last time. Are you okay for me to give you the ball today? That's your choice. I just gave you the choice. How you choose to go compete with your feelings, sometimes feelings, they behave like a bully. I'm like, what? I'm so mad. I'm so sad. I'm this, I'm that. I'm pissed. I'm rage. I'm angry. I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm anxious. I'm afraid. Sometimes athletes are downright afraid. It's
Mm.
fucking scary.
Yeah.
Everybody's sitting back like, nah, no big deal. I'm not here to judge. I don't care what you come to me with. I care about you. I'm assessing. I'm holding space. I'm collecting data. Just like you felt when we had that conversation, I also feel. I
Yeah.
played baseball. I played a lot of these sports. I understand what 0 for 4 feels like. I get it. I know what failing feels like. It fucking hurts. That's the truth. It hurts. It rattles you. It trips you up. And in the middle of a game, of course you don't want to let anybody down. So when someone says, hey, go be confident, go be aggressive, aggressive does not fix or even band-aid that feeling. But what does is my knowledge, my ability to grab a breath and go,
Yeah.
use it, reset to balance my athletic ability to physically balance and compete with what's right in front of me. And now go after you, go after the runner, go after this, whatever my job is. I need to know that. A pitcher, do you know how many times I've supported 38 major league pitchers, not one. When I said, what's your job? Has given me one answer. It's my job's throw strikes. Don't you know my job? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
Well,
And that's
even
my job.
even when you like asked me that question, I was like, what is the answer? Like you're talking, I'm like, well, I want to act like I know the answer, but I don't think I know the answer. So I was like, yeah, so did anybody give you the right answer? I was trying to beat around the bush about it because yeah, I
We
mean,
overthink
yeah,
and we
100%.
need to stop because not stop, but we need to simplify. And the simplified answer is the furthest one away because not one guy has ever said, oh, I know what it is. I got you. I was like, they laugh, they get nervous, they start wondering, like, and I said, hey, you got to where you got. Pretty damn impressive, by the way. What you've been managing and micromanaging on the mound during a game, I can't imagine what you would do
Mm,
if you had one thing and you went out there and you already created that mound is your breath of fresh air. How about that? How about I can't wait to get out there? And hitters look at pitchers and they're like, man, we got this guy today, blah, blah, blah. I said, who gives a shit? Execute your game plan. Like, I need
yep.
him. By the way, a hitter needs a pitcher. And then sometimes they're like, I didn't think of it like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the truth. So AJ, if you're my client, I'm going to say, let's have a discussion about some truths and facts. Your ERA does not tell me the whole story. It doesn't tell me who you are. And you're not just a baseball player. There's a big problem right there. You're so much more. There's a human being putting a uniform on and going out into the space, performing, performing. We are entertainers when we're pro athletes. We're being paid to entertain. There's a lot of emotions attached to it because it's not like I'm taking a script and acting in a movie, which is a lot simpler than going out and being the man in the arena on a mound on that little island. Technically, that's a fucking island by
Yeah.
yourself. And people use that cliche, oh, imagine being on an island by yourself. Well, guess what? That's what a pitcher does every damn night. That's
Yeah.
what the setup guy does. When it's shit, call so and so out of the. And do you think that's a real comfy walk from the bullpen across the field in a big ass game? And you're the last chance for that team? No, it's not. I've worked with setup guys. It's scary as fuck. I've worked with
Yeah, it
close.
is.
Yes, ask Barry Bonds. You know,
Yeah.
you work with Barry. Ask him about the setup guy. Ask him about the scariest guy in the lineup of bullpen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, like I mean, and that's another person when I've had conversations with him and like just his insight of everything. I'm like, man, this is an amazing conversation. The way what he
genius.
knows is unreal.
He's a
But
genius.
he's a genius. He
We're
really
bringing
is.
him on here. We're gonna bring him on here.
We got to we got to do it because it would be so insightful and then people will learn a lot of stuff from him. But whenever you brought up like execute is your job, execute, that really like put in my mind and gave me that feel of like whenever I was at my best, that's what I was doing. Whether I struck out a guy whether I gave up a hit or whatever it is, whether the bases are loaded or not, that execute the next pitch allowed me to be in that moment, be in that zone, and not allow for all these other things, the crowd, the situation of a bases loaded, no outs, or
You said
whatever
a
it is.
word, zone. You used a
Yeah,
word that a lot of people use. So the zone found you a lot. But imagine had you said, "This is my zone. I create my zone. I don't wait for the zone to find me. I create my zone."
yeah,
Imagine what you would have done because you're tough. You were able to stay in the furnace for a long time, longer than a lot of pitchers that technically don't know their job. You're a very talented talent supported you, had your back a lot because you would lean into it, but you also lead into a toughness. And that's because that's a lot of who you are that played in. You are vulnerable enough to allow who you are to play into your performance as a pitcher, which is why you got away with that and why the zone, without knowing it, you created space and the zone found you. And you're like, oh, there's that feel. Yes.
yeah,
And then days it wasn't there, innately as an athlete, we're like, how come yesterday I was this, but today I'm this? I have no feel. So feelings will play us. Feel when we have that, then we actually play.
yeah. I think that's why baseball players are so and athletes are so routine oriented. We think that our routine is what gets us in that
Superstition.
zone,
Yeah.
right? So like
I was 3 for 4 yesterday. I need that. I need to use that sauce.
I need to eat the eggs. I need to eat 4 eggs on this white plate because
So white. Hey,
I got 4 outs in this save.
yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's so I think that's why a lot of baseball play because we're like it's such a long game and there is a lot of failure. And so we try to be as routine as possible so that we can recreate that feeling of the zone. And it isn't in our routines because there are times where I mean, I was one of those guys that would like to go out after the games. I mean, I'm closing out a ball game. I'm so hyped. I got a lot of energy. Man, I need to go out and do something. I can't just go back to the hotel or to
And
my
bounce
house and
off the
just like,
walls. Yeah.
man, I'm ready to. I get chills like right now thinking about it. Like I just want to go, you know. So I will go out and sometimes, you know, I have a few too many drinks. Come back to the field the next day a little bit hungover, but like those are the best days that I would strike out the
You're
side.
all, I had to do it. You're all, I had
But
to do it. I didn't want to have
but
a
I
drink.
wasn't
I had
but
to
I wasn't
because
gonna go like, oh well, you know, maybe I need to go out every night and like, you know, get hammered and like blah blah blah. Because I knew that's not what it is. And that really made me think like so routine matters more to get your body ready, but like getting in the zone is something deeper than just the routine. You know what I
working
mean? It's
smarter, not harder, and creating a
exactly.
routine that actually speaks to your process, speaks to what it's going to take and what you need to capture feel, to create feel, versus going out. And some people go out to sedate. They have
Mhm.
ways of sedating. They go to their phone and they don't actually tune into the pain. And I'll tell you, it's in our pain that we have our greatest possibilities because the pain is calling you to, hey, look at the truth here, time out. Let's work this out. And that's where that whole mental stigma gets created because, oh, I don't need help. And you don't
Ah,
want your organization to know. So we don't go talk to the mental people in the organization. And a lot of times we understand that anxiety doesn't live on page 10 either. It's offensive. It's
mhm.
offensive as an athlete when someone comes and tells me when I've let my team down, hey, don't be mad. You're fine. Look at you. Go be confident. Go be aggressive. That is like a bullshit everything. And it's offensive. And when it doesn't work for you or your superstitious routine, the 4 eggs on the white plate don't
Yeah,
work. Now we're really confused. What emotion does that bring up? What does that make us? Defensive.
yeah,
Now my defense plays that next day and I do even worse. And then one day it kind of wears off and I come out and I get that hit or I make that out or something and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. Or when you get that hit and I've talked to hitters about this or even pitchers, they get away with it. Or a hitter gets on second and he's like, I got that. That was lucky. And
mhm.
your knees are shaking. You almost honestly want to end the game. You're like, somebody want to play for me? Because I just finished
Yeah,
real strong. We're good.
yeah,
There's so much that goes on. This is why it's so important to have the support,
right.
to be organized, to know your job. The mental game should play backwards. We got to work backwards from your job. I'm going
Mm,
to talk to you different, AJ, you're a pitcher, than I am a right fielder. We are still going to move into the the offensive vertical, and we're going to work in that space. But we're also going to talk about standards, not expectations, not setting you up for a false sense of reality. It's a false sense of security
Right.
because most people have unrealistic approaches, unrealistic expectations for this game in particular. So until you check them and you really sit down and have a conversation and throw all your shit on the table, that's where I'm like, that. Why are we using the word try so much?
Mm.
Did you try baseball before? Well, yeah, but you're a big leaguer, right? Are you still trying it? Is that what we're doing? But people use try. Well, I tried this and I tried that and I tried to get this guy and I tried. I go, you did it or you didn't. So you failed. How's that
Mhm.
feel? And they're like, fucking sucks. I go, yeah, and you're veering away from the truth all day. And we're doing the I tried.
Mm.
No, we either did it or we didn't do it.
That's
We're all
right.
big people here. We tried Little League. Fucking loved it. I stayed. I played. I played as long as I could. And now you
Yeah.
guys are playing at this level and you're still using the word try, try, try. That word right there speaks differently to the subconscious, where thousands of muscles live and resonate with, and they show up for us. And it's powerful. And until you understand and know that, you experienced it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
strength.
like I think I mentioned before, like my dad would always tell me, like, hey, like speak to the ball. Let him know that he's not going to get hit. It sounds silly, but it's like getting every bone and every cell in my body to
All
be
in.
on board and to like say we are not going to be hit. And then there were times where like there was bases though, whatever it was, and I'm like, I am not giving up a run. I just know I'm not going to give up a run. Not like I hope I don't give up a run. I'm gonna try not to give up a run. Like I'm like I am not giving up a run. I don't care what it is.
As scared as it was, you
Yeah,
said, I will be all in
yeah,
all ways, right here, right now, always. And that is just, you're just, all I hear when you're talking is I hear, oh, dad was speaking offense to you. You were
yes,
speaking offense to the ball. And
yeah.
even though you don't control it, you don't control if it gets hit and the left fielder fumbles it. That
Hmm.
doesn't reflect you, but we act like it does. And now we're defensive and we're pissed. Catch the fucking ball. How hard is it? Blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
conversation just takes over. How
mm,
can you pitch when that's happening? Your
uh,
job is way too.
you're battling yourself.
Yes.
You're battling. I mean, the times where I was bad, I was battling myself, and I felt like I was the reason I lost the game. That and it was I was never hit a lot, but the times where I lost, I was walking people because I was trying not to do X, Y, Z. But the one of the last questions I want to ask you because I know you have to go. I want to ask you about what about like when a team. So when I was watching the Phillies and their last few games, they were really
Defensive.
defensive, very defensive, and like they were like trying so hard to get out of this like bad slump that they had fallen in. So like
It was an energy.
yeah, so what do you do with that when there's that energy in the locker room? Like what is something that a player or coach or someone can go in there and like to like change the vibe of that because that's exactly what they needed.
They did. They did need it. I saw it too. And it's hard when it's such a simple adjustment that would have lit, it would have almost like it would have whipped through like a
Right.
spark would have lit it up. And they all are so good. They would have seen that light and go, we got this.
Mhm.
We are going to win this game. Not, I hope we do. The expectation of the fans. Those are rough fans, you know? So there's a lot more going on in every one of them individually. Plus you have Bryce, who usually is the guy. He steps up
Yeah.
and he does something charismatic and, very insanely talented and incredible within the game. But those guys forgot because I've seen them all do it before. So I will say forgot the fundamentals win the fight.
Mm.
When I fought, it's not the flashy stuff. It's the fundamentals. If I go in and try to bypass my fundamentals and do big shit in the world championships, that's when it gets you. It's the little things that are the big things. The ordinary things done extra over and over and over in those big games is what's extraordinary. When they can all come together and go, guys, keep it simple. They needed to simplify. I won't say a lack of leadership because it's really not that with the Phillies.
Right.
However, and that's tough because you said, what do you do with the team? I've helped players influence teams in our
Yeah.
own way, specifically in different circumstances. But for the sake of that, yes, they were defensive. I bet you if somebody had gone in the locker room and said, guys, we got to get offensive and we got to stay that way with every pitch, every rep, from the moment you put whatever, cleats, belt, hat, flip the switch. What does
Mm,
your offensive beast on that field between the white lines look like? They all would have just, like you said, you feel it. They would have been like,
right.
doesn't guarantee a hit, a hit, and out and an out and an out. It doesn't guarantee shit. However, they would have been able to collide with that other team that was bringing more offense. They were still, I saw them on defense too at times. They were flip flopping and they would have just the right guy at the right time on offense.
Mm, yeah.
However, the Phillies, I got to be careful because I have players out there and I don't want to offend, even though offense being offended never killed anyone. But when offense collides and it's heavier and leveraging and more technical offensively than the other team, it's going to create a momentum. It's got to be trained. It's got to be schooled. It's got to be drilled. GSP, George St. Pierre told me, showed me I said, hey, could you show me a takedown that works for a fight you think is works the best? He goes, sure. He showed it. Of course, I did it right away. I'm like, okay. And he's like, hey, you're not fight with that. You can't use that in your fight. I'm like, right. He's like, you got to train it at least 200 times, drill it 200 times before you even train it. And when you train it 200 times before you fight with it. I was like, imagining in my head, how am I going to find a training partner that's going to take him down 200 times
Yeah.
minimum, And I was like, okay, but this is the thing. A team, a lot of them don't have this. I don't know why they don't. Simplification, fundamentals wins the fight. The fights are won in the transition as well.
Mm,
Baseball is martial arts. So yeah, I would have
yeah.
loved to have walked in the locker room and just been a spark and said, we need offense. Does that land for everybody? I'll guarantee you there might have been two guys that said, what do you mean? But the rest
Right.
of them would have been like, fuck yeah, we're ready.
Because it's a
Ready
simple
is offensive and balanced in baseball.
it's a simple concept. It really
Yeah.
is. Like it, and once like again, the way you explained it now, like you mentioned, other people you may have to explain it a slightly different way because they
Yeah.
perceive and understand things differently. But that's just one conversation away from you from being able to understand how to relay the message to them. But once that lands, it's like, oh, okay, like it just for me, even though I'm not playing anymore, I was like, I could take a deep breath, like, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have felt that when I was on the mound. Some of those
So
times
why don't
where
you just have you go pitch again?
I know. Well, if my shoulder could hold up, I would do it.
You
And
could do
oh,
it.
I could, but no, you got to go. And the next time though, I want to get into more of you, like black belt, surfer, multiple sport athlete, like badass that you are. I want to get into more of that because your story is amazing
Thank you.
and it explains how you came up with like a lot of these mindsets and understandings behind this.
I'm
But
just a messenger. I feel like God, you get called. He chooses you. And he's like, hey, athlete, I got something more for you. And I feel very humbled. I feel blessed. I'm always open to learning. And, I see what I see. I share what I share. And there's no ego attached to it. I do understand the feelings and the feel, though. I know them well. And that's maybe why I wish I look back kind of how you're like, if I had this then and that. Me too. Me
yeah,
too. So this is my way to continue playing and sharing it and watching other people take this and literally run with it and not just run with it, rise with it. People that maybe called me completely defeated, or cried. And it fractures me too because I feel you. I'm in your
right.
rabbit hole with you. And that's life, right? We're just here to share. We're here to learn. We're here to share. We're here to be humble. We're here to be offensive with our knowledge, our kindness, our experience, our compassion. And, I know you're cut from the same cloth, AJ. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for having me on here. I'm looking forward to sharing more with your people.
Yes, yes. Thank you again for coming on. This won't be the last time. But thank you and have a good rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.